Hey, everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome to our session here today by ThreatConnect and Polarity. And we're going to be talking about how you can accelerate your SOC investigations using our capabilities. Again, thanks everybody for joining. Just for introduction purposes, my name is Joe Rivela. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer of Polarity and also the SVP of Customer Success at ThreatConnect. I've got a long career in cyber now, about 20 years. I started by doing forensic investigations for the New York State Office of the Attorney General and transitioned that into a career on the commercial sector side, doing web application, network-oriented pen tests, transitioned into mobile for a brief period of time. But after you learn how to investigate systems and break into them, they ask you to be an incident responder. That's what I did for a bulk of my career before starting Polarity. At some point, I transitioned into a CERT team lead and a director in that practice. And now we're enabling teams just like those that I used to work on for faster, accelerated, more effective incident response, hunt, and security operations across their organizations. And again, thanks for joining us here today. So to start things off, I kind of want to talk about what today's security operations experience is, really the dream of what leadership wants that experience to be for their teams. And that dream is really this unified real-time visibility across all domains. So if you think about working for a large enterprise and you want to have kind of cross-spectrum visibility where all of your endpoint alerts, all of your network alerts, all of your web-oriented alerts are all flowing into the single place, we would love to be working in that environment. It would just be great to have everything flowing into one place to investigate all things on a day-to-day basis, know where we're going to work, know where we need to be, know where to pivot, et cetera. That we'd have this continuous flow of contextual enrichment. It doesn't matter what we're working with or what type of incident we're investigating. The right context is going to be enriching that experience in real time as we go about doing our work. This kind of mecca that we're aiming for also has automated response and containment capabilities built into it, right? So this dream state is everything's cross-spectrum visibility, everything's enriched, and we can take any action that we need in order to contain and minimize security events to limit the impacts or damage to our institutions or the organizations that we defend. And we've also got all of the investigative and response tooling embedded into that technology too. So if there's a question we can't answer, there will be embedded capabilities within these platforms to assist us in understanding, reasoning, and really getting to the root of what we're investigating. And of course, resilience and recovery capabilities would be built in, and everything would be aligned to our businesses. If an alert comes into the platform, the single pane of glass, we would know whether or not it's of higher importance to the business, lower importance to the business. We would understand the impacts, et cetera, and we would be able to take action swiftly. So this is where we really would love to be. It's very difficult to get there. So really the reality of the security operations analyst experience is more like this. We've got diverse user needs. One platform that's made available by a large enterprise is not going to service the needs and capabilities of the many, right? We all have different organizational drivers. We all have different systems. We all have different workflows, and we can't ask one platform that gets put out there by a big technology organization to accommodate all of our needs. And we have business segmentation. So for legitimate reasons, things that occur in the day-to-day of running a business, our environments are segmented with purpose. Oftentimes that could be because of the criticality of the different systems, and we need to have natural segmentation between those environments to mitigate risks or to limit compliance obligations. Perhaps we've acquired a business and that business has not yet been certified to connect to the broader organization. Maybe there's a security team that focuses very specifically on a type of network, a SCADA environment, something like that, versus the remainder of the environment, which is your traditional IT. We've got all these reasons to segment. So we've got many reasons to run different tooling. Some of those systems may deploy a certain type of EDR, whereas other aspects of the business will use a separate one. Some may have multiple SIMs. Some may have multiple ticketing systems. Some have multiple LDAPs or identity repositories. And because of this, we find ourselves kind of going out there and looking and investigating across all of these platforms. Organizations have also had a lot of start and stop initiatives. In other words, at some point in time, there's enough horsepower behind a certain project, let's say an identity management initiative or an asset initiative, where we're going to get all of our assets updated and into one place. And that gets a certain amount of business resources dedicated to it for a finite period of time. Ultimately, the project, ceases to have the motivation behind it, and we end up with a product that's more half finished, or it's now functioning and it never really achieved what we thought it would. So these start and stop initiatives leave behind them other places and other repositories within the organization that we have to go off and search. So we also have a situation where there's a lot of fast-moving landscapes and inconsistent data and data models within the organization. Consistent data and data models contribute to the inability to interconnect systems that we need to have interconnected. You may think about a incident platform that's really designed to handle things like phishing investigations or phishing alerts, versus others that are designed to handle different types of incidents. Very difficult sometimes to put those into the same uniform platform. We've also got evolving price strategies from the technology suppliers that we work with. A technology that may be very interesting to us and very attractive to us because of its low price, we gravitate towards that technology. We put all of our data into that platform because, again, it's very cost efficient. But as that technology gains popularity, gains ground, adds additional features and components, that price goes up, and we may seek additional alternatives as to where to place that data. We might seek a different tool. We might seek to put some of the data now into the very expensive technology, but we're going to place the less critical alerts into a different technology where they can be searched later. Integration fragility, this is a big thing across lots of platforms. It's difficult to make everything work. Your favorite data provider may update its API, very, very quickly on a very aggressive basis, leaving your other technologies behind, and they haven't been able to update the integration or the API connections fast enough, resulting in an inability to enrich within the platform. And there always are technology challenges with performance at scale. The more you bring into a platform, the more you ask the platform to do. In a lot of cases, the slowest it's going to get. So what we end up with is this oasis of a single pane of glass type of experience that organizations want to, pursue. Lo and behold, once they get to that oasis, they've been drawn there. It looks very nice, but what it ends up being is a tar pit, a place where they exhaust and allocate a lot of organizational resources, ultimately with a lot of start, stop, dying initiatives, and analysts are left kind of to pay the price. And now we've got multiple panes of glass because of these, start and stop initiatives. Now, what an analyst day-to-day really looks like, at least across, the customers that we work with, is that there's lots of tooling. There might be multiple SIM platforms that they need to log into, a ticketing system that's allocated for a very specific type of alert. They may have to break into a separate malware analysis engine, a different network utility. Perhaps they'll have to open up tooling to investigate something more thoroughly so that they can keep the remainder of their environment safe, something like a sandbox. And all this hat switching comes at a cost, right? All this tool swapping, tool switching, the mindset required to jump into these tools, not to mention the fact that analysts can't be expected to be subject matter experts within all of these technologies. So there's a learning curve and there's a catch up or ramp up speed that has to be accounted for every time you switch into a new tool. Now, with that said, we do need to think about how we're going to change our mindset in order to accommodate analysts and help make their lives better, right? We need to bring them more data and more context to where they work, right? And avoid lots of disruptive searches where they just pivot to all these different platforms, run the searches that they need, normally one at a time, oftentimes getting zero answers back to the questions that they're asking. Or in some cases, they need to spend more time learning how to query these systems using whatever XQL language that the system requires in order to get the answers back that they need. And we really need to lean in more on analyst speed and intuition, right? Relying on the analysts more, trusting the investigative process, yes, we need standard operating procedures, and within your organizations, investigations should flow a certain way. But if we're going to try to pigeonhole analysts into a very specific way of working, we're going to lose some creativity, we're going to lose some agility, and we're going to overall, just lose that feeling, that gut instinct, that intuition that's required for analysts to do a very, very good job. And we have to acknowledge that cross-platform investigations, we're going to lose something inherently. If we're going to work in 4 or 5 different tools to do one type of investigation, it's going to be difficult to enable collaboration between resources. Having analyst A know that analyst B is working in a separate tool than they are, in a separate ticketing system with a separate set of investigative processes that need to be pursued, we're going to lose that. And we always want to be in a state where we're delivering value immediately to the analysts, right? And we always want to serve up the information that we're providing them, the information that organizations invest in, that we need to be providing them in a way that's digestible, usable, so that it can have the greatest impact on the institution. So we're going to talk about how Polarity can help accelerate your security operations. At a high level, what you're going to see in the presentation, and after this, we're going to transition into various live examples, is that Polarity can help enhance environmental asset awareness. In other words, Polarity can help you understand the environment that you're investigating better. If you see an asset on your screen, you can understand what that asset is and what that asset means to the organization. It can help you with domain analysis. So instead of copying and pasting the domain into several different tools, you can understand what this domain is, what IPs are associated with the domain, who registered the domain, et cetera. Identity awareness is a big one, right? So if you think about, this is the who component of an incident. Oftentimes you'll see an alert, it will have the username or an email address, and you'll need to understand who is this person or what is this identity in the case of something like a service account. What do they mean to the organization? Do they have privileged access? When was the last time they reset their password, et cetera? These are things that we have to go off and hunt and peck for within an organization. And it's very, very difficult to get the answers that we need in lots of cases because of the different sheer number of identity platforms that we might have within an institution. Hash analysis is definitely a core area where the Polarity capability is going to help you get visibility across endpoint investigations or anything really having to do with a file. When we see a hash, we need to understand what the file name associated with it is. Is it associated with anything known good? Is it associated with anything known bad? Is it leveraged by bad guys to kind of live off the land? So we'll dive into a couple of those. Threat contextualization, just getting an understanding of what threat actors or threat data sets might be associated with the investigation that you're running. Also, interconnection with SOAR and SIM platforms. So as security operations analysts, as incident responders, going to the places where we might already have a wealth of valuable information about the security events that we are either actively investigating or have not yet identified in the case of SOAR and SIM reciprocally is super important. We also are going to enable analyst coordination, collaboration, and in certain cases, shift transition, so that you know when your peers are working on similar themed investigations with common either indicators or selectors at their core. And certainly we want to contribute to consistency and quality of analyst workflows. Again, the platform is an analyst first platform. So Polarity was designed to be on the side of the analyst so that analysts can do a better job at what they're doing and produce better outcomes for their company. So at this point, we're going to jump into some live examples. If there are any questions, you can go ahead and toss those questions directly into the chat here. My colleague Krista is on the line. She'll help me to understand whether or not any have been posed, and I'll also keep a careful eye on them as well. But the intent of these is to walk through just some use cases that might feel a little bit closer to home. You'll notice some common backdrops like ticketing systems and other tools that analysts might work in. And you should see many tools that resonate with you or that you understand from doing the type of work that security operations analysts are going to be responsible for on a day-to-day. So with that, let's launch into the first one. Pretty easy, pretty basic use case, right? The use case is simple phishing. And what we see here on the left-hand side is the backdrop of a phishing email. Maybe it was forwarded to us by an analyst. Now, the layout of these is also, many of these are pictures. So you can see embedded within PowerPoint here, this is actually a picture. I cannot actually engage with the text natively. So what I'll show in the very first use case is how Polarity fails, actually. You can see here, I have my Polarity overlay window. It can be opened and dismissed just that easily. And one of the strengths of the platform is just the sheer ease of use. So if you've never used the platform before, all you really have to know how to do is turn on some subscriptions and draw a box. That is the base minimum expectation of a Polarity end user if they want to start using the Polarity platform. So what I'm going to do here to start is, again, show you how the platform fails. I'm going to want to research this particular email address as it's been the sender for this phishing email, and I'm going to draw a box around it. And you can see I'm going to bring back just a little bit of information from one integration that I turned on, but really none from these other data sets. So if I want to get information back from data sets like URL scan, virus total, alien vault OTX, and URL house, all I have to do is turn them on. Now, what I purposefully did when I identified this use case is sought 4 of the free integrations that roll with the Polarity platform. You can use the free keys for all of these technologies with Polarity to access the information that's in these repositories seamlessly. The ones I've turned on so far are URL scan and URL house. Both are going to give us information on domains and URLs that have been reported either as malicious, suspicious, or otherwise by the user community. I've turned on Alien Vault OTX, which is an open source project which fields reports of abuse. And I'm also going to turn on Virus Total, which is obviously the open source or rather community-driven initiative under Google now. So I've turned on all of these integrations, and you can see how the experience is going to change when I draw the box around this email address once more. At this point, I've turned on URL scan, I've turned on URL house, I've turned on virus total, and now I get all of the information pouring into the information overlay window about this particular string across these particular data sets. It's that easy. I drew a box, turned on integrations, drew a box. One common misunderstanding of Polarity users when they first start using the platform is they think that this is all the data that's available to them. So occasionally throughout the rest of these use cases, I'm going to be clicking into data cards. When you click into the data cards, you actually can get the additional information from all of these sources. So here from Alien Vault OTX, I can see if there's any information and reports. I can also pull down some passive DNS information if I need it. If URL scan has scanned the URL before, there'll actually be an image here for me. But there's more metadata available from URL scan, including the last IP address associated with the domain when it did its scan. And then once I'm done viewing the data, I can simply collapse it. And remember, I turned on virus total. So at this point, I don't have any hits in virus total for this particular string. Now, it's very convenient if I have an image of an email in front of me, but chances are this won't be nearly as thorough to support a real security operations investigation. And I also have a QR code here, which hasn't been investigated yet. Oftentimes, the workflow technologies that we come across have a very difficult time analyzing these, processing them, and getting them into the queue. So the first thing I'll show here is, at least with these integrations that we've turned on, I'm going to go ahead and draw a box around this QR code. And you can see, leveraging the same integrations that we've already turned on, we are now pulling back information for the URL domain associated with this particular QR. And here we start to see even further some of the additional integrations kind of alert us a little bit more, notify us a little bit more as to the specifics of this particular domain. Very big difference between what we saw with just the Microsoft 365 Online URL versus what we see here with the URL that's embedded within this QR code. Clearly, virus total is identifying this as suspicious, and there's community flags associated with it to show that it's malware. URL scan has also identified this particular domain as malicious. Just like before, we can launch specifically into the card. All we have to do is click in, and we can quick navigate to the actual screenshot of the site. Look out for these URLs or these thumbnails. These will help navigate you back to URL scan in this case, so that you can see the larger image. Or if you just want to get back to the authoritative source, you can always do that by clicking the hyperlinks that are embedded within the Polarity overlay window. So it's super helpful. I can get my verdict information, etc. I can also go through and see what VirusTotal has to say about this particular URL, both with the summary form, the detection engines that have identified it as potentially malicious, the community scoring here, as well as any other details that might be associated with it from the site. And again, just like URL scan, you can click here and you can go back and visit VirusTotal directly if that's something that you would like to do. Once I've consumed the information about this particular URL, I can simply click in the summary box and you see it will collapse back into just the small summary view, and I can continue to go about my work. So all we've looked at so far really is just the sender, and gotten back really only information on the domain, as well as we've investigated this QR code very, very seamlessly. But again, there's more to do with an investigation like this. Security operations analysts know this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to pull up the header from this particular communication. A lot more in here, right? A lot of things that were not necessarily, meeting the user's eyeball when they first looked at it at a glance. And what we can do here when we have the whole header is simply grab all the text. I'm going to copy it here, and I'm going to click within the overlay window, and I'm just going to say search the clipboard. And now you can see anything that was contained within that header is going to come back. So in certain cases, if something was spoofed or we had a different reply to address contained within the message, or if there was another embedded link or URL contained within the message, we're going to get all that data back here directly within the overlay window. So at this point, we've done kind of a cursory analysis just using the focus capability. We've investigated the QR code, again, using the focus capability, but achieving something that is sometimes very painful for operations analysts to achieve. And we've also done a full header extract and analysis through the platform to the point where you can evaluate them against these particular integrations that we've turned on so far. And hopefully that gives you just a little bit better of an understanding of how easy it is to use the platform, how you can introduce open source context enrichment on at least URLs, domains, IPs into your workflow from wherever you work, as well as investigating QR codes. We'll keep with the phishing theme here for one more slide. In this case, just to help folks wrap their heads around it, we're going to showcase this particular phishing email in the context of a ticket rather than a forward where you had to do the header extraction yourself. And in this case, within this ticket, which is meant to look like ServiceNow, the additional enrichment from something like a sandbox has also occurred. And of course, if we were to investigate this and we were going to just use the Polarity focus feature, we can obviously identify interesting components. We can draw a box around it, and we can get the enrichment. Remember, it works everywhere. It does not matter where you do your work. If your phishing investigation is done in a SOAR platform, if it's done in a native capabilities of a SIM, if it's done in a ticketing tool, if it's done just through traditional email, Polarity is going to work on top of it and bring that enrichment everywhere. But in this case, we'll turn on several other integrations. We'll start with the ThreatConnect integration. Polarity and ThreatConnect are now one company. So our integration there is very, very tight, and we connect to the ThreatConnect threat intel platform. I'll also turn on Tenable as an example of a vulnerability management tool that we can connect to. I'll make sure that Splunk is on. It was on from the jump, but we can validate that Splunk is on here. And I'll turn on LDAP as an example of an identity repository within an organization. And lastly, as an example of a commercial class, very popular ticketing platform and asset management utility, we'll turn on ServiceNow. And what we want to show here is the ability to connect to broad spectrum commercial software, right? Including those that connect you to your threat intelligence, that identify what systems have what vulnerabilities. We want to be able to connect you to your SIM platform so you can answer very, very quickly where has a thing been observed within my environment, if that is, of course, the question. and also tap into identity and asset repositories, because these are all things that we need to understand better in order to investigate an alert. So now that we've got these additional integrations turned on, we have followed the same principle as before. We can go ahead and draw a box around whatever we're interested in. I'm going to focus on the top end here, where I've got my senders, my recipients, as well as an internal IP. And the information will flow into the overlay window. We've seen a lot of these sources already. We've seen Alien Vault OTX. We know we can get information from VirusTotal and URL Scan. But what I can check here very, very quickly is what I'm tracking within my threat intel platform. So here I see the designation TC, that stands for ThreatConnect. I can quick pivot into ThreatConnect, and I can see how we're tracking this particular indicator. If I were observing this in the context of an alert and I had determined that this was a false positive, I can actually report that false positive to my colleagues who help manage and inform our defensive operations within the organization. So it's a very, very seamless way to report false positives and create that feedback loop with my colleagues. I can also see the various tags that have been associated with this particular string. So it's super convenient to understand why something's being treated as a threat or potentially suspicious, or if it's not tracked at all as I'm undergoing these investigations. I can also see for the internal IP associated with the host of the asset for the recipient that received this email. I actually can get additional information from the asset management system. In this case, ServiceNow is functioning as my asset management system. And I can also see any vulnerabilities associated with the host. Again, all I have to do to get this data is click in one time. I can pull back information. I can understand this is a workstation. I can get the host name. I can see who it's assigned to, and I can see whether or not it's a key financial system or not. I can also see if this asset has any vulnerabilities. So here I can see a total of 14 informational vulnerabilities and a total of 7 high risk issues. I can also see what indexes have a presence of this particular string, this string being 10.10.34.1, across my Splunk implementation. And just like everything else connected to Polarity, if I wanted to quick pivot out, I could click on the view option here. I could quick nav to my Splunk instance. All I have to do is authenticate, and it will take me right to the alerts or the data or the network traffic, whatever it is that's associated with this particular event. So very, very quick and easy way to search my SIM seamlessly and drive into my SIM without having to know the syntax of how to get there. We can also focus in now on the bottom part of the alert because we've investigated more or less the top part. I'm going to go ahead and hit focus, and I'm going to draw a box around these strings. Here we've got things like file names. We've got some additional hashes, and those will also be interrogated, looked up, in this case, against ThreatConnect, Tenable, Splunk, the LDAP solution, if there was anything there for that particular integration, and ServiceNow. ServiceNow, within Polarity can function both as an asset repository. There's a module for that, so you can bring back the asset information as we showed earlier, but it can also function as a mechanism to tap into historical tickets. So if someone had already opened a ticket associated with a hash or with a domain, et cetera, that would actually surface up to me so that I would know whether or not I'm working on a similar investigation as someone else. So that was kind of stepping through the high level, how you would triage a phishing incident using, at this point, 9 integrations that we've turned on that kind of deliver on top of any workflow where we might conduct those types of investigations. Now, it's also very easy to talk about phishing. It's kind of like a go-to for presentations of this variety. Lots of folks know what it is. It resonates with many people. But of course, it's not the only type of incident that security operations analysts are investigating. So we kind of wanted to go to the other end of the spectrum here and introduce a class of incident that might just not be the run-of-the-mill that everyone tries to showcase. So in this scenario, we're going to actually talk about a web attack. And we're going to showcase a few different types of capabilities within the Polarity platform. So far, we've connected to a bunch of free open source data sets. We've connected to 4 or 5 examples of internal commercial capabilities. But now we'll turn on a few that allow for utility and that are also very nuanced to the Polarity platform alone. So in this particular case, we've got an alert. It's just been simply dubbed anonymous web activity. We can see here the traditional source destination as you'd expect from network traffic, but we also have a payload here that has been attempted to be submitted in a web request, right? Either a get or a post. And so what we want to do in order to understand this is make sure that we have integrations turned on that will help us in this variety. I will say, virus total, URL scan, Tenable, these other capabilities that we've turned on so far really aren't going to help us to understand what this payload is. So we'll want to go back into Polarity and go to our subscriptions. And in this moment, we're going to turn on a few others. We're going to turn on CyberChef, which absolutely will help us understand a payload better, especially if it's been encoded. We are also going to turn on what we call Polarity Source Analytics, which gives us visibility into cross-team investigative history. We're going to turn on the Polarity Assistant, which will help summarize the things that we are investigating for us, and you'll see more about that in a moment. And we're going to turn on one of Polarity's many integrations that allows you to interact with an LLM of your choosing. So now that I've got these integrations turned on, I can go ahead, if I'd like, and just reload the overlay window. That clears the slate, and I can launch into this new investigation for this web activity. Now, just like we've seen so far, I've got some indicators here. Very, very easy for me to use everything that I've turned on at this point and understand the source and destination specifics here. In one case, I can see I've got no detections on this 99 address, but I can also see for my internal asset who's receiving the request, I've got some vulnerabilities on this one as well. I can also see, what type of asset that is. But what I'm really after in this case is to understand this payload a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and select that payload. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to come over to the overlay window and select Search My Clipboard. And you can see now, because I've turned on CyberChef, I can actually go in and engage with traditional CyberChef tooling. The experience here should look and feel very much like CyberChef. This is a local instance of CyberChef. You are not sending these requests out to a GitHub hosted project. This can all be kept local to your Polarity server. And I'm going to leverage the magic function in this case to determine what it suggests is the function that I should apply. And in this case, it's a decode from base64. And I immediately get the output in the CyberChef tool. So ultimately, the function of CyberChef and the purpose of CyberChef has been fulfilled. But sometimes when doing encoding, decoding, et cetera, you end up with a string that you don't understand. It could be another encoded string, in which case you run through a similar function, or it can just be an output that you have not been trained on, right? You don't understand it. Maybe you haven't done web investigations before. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to take this string, and I'm going to use Polarity to help me understand this a little bit better. How I'm going to do this is just engage with the Polarity overlay window, somewhat of a chatbot. And I'm going to ask it, can you help me to understand a string I have decoded from CyberChef? And the overlay window will come back. This is the AI integration at the moment. And again, you can bring your own LLM here. And we're going to accept whatever security prompting has been embedded. And the system will engage us and offer it up its help. Now that I have the string, I can paste that in. And the system will help me understand this particular string within the UI. This is all live, right? No staged demo in this particular case. We're engaging with all Polarity integrations and every other interconnected data source live so that folks can see the true capability of the platform. And here it's going to give us some specifics as to what it's observing. This can help us do a better job as analysts, right? These tools are here to help us get efficiency, yes, but also a degree of thoroughness, also a degree of increased probability that we're going to be doing the work better, not just faster. So these tools are here for analysts to apply. You can choose to use this one. You can choose not to. It does connect to an LLM. Our different customers have different policies as it relates to the use of these, but it can very much be pointed to an internal LLM of your choosing as well, not just external. So in this case, we've decoded a string. We've asked for help. And maybe in this case, because that string actually is a SQL injection attempt to understand the versioning of a database, it's pretty affirmatory that this is a malicious web request, probably something that we want to take some sort of action on or document. In particular, the source IP that was responsible for sending it to us. So, we can hone in on this. We can do our research on the 216 very, very quickly. Notice these are defanged, right? And I think that's a pretty important thing to highlight. Polarity handles defanging very, very well. Lots of different variants of it. So with this particular string, looks malicious to me, virus total, various reports on alien vault.tx. I would never recommend taking any information like this blindly and just making a determination as to malicious or not. But certainly there's enough smoke here to signal fire, and we can validate this very, very quickly. When it comes down to documenting our decisions and what we found or just our overall investigation, we can leverage the Polarity Assistant here to help summarize this particular string. And this can be then copy and pasted into whatever system we're using to workflow our investigations, or can be dropped into a report if we're preparing something for management. Most AI summaries that we're leveraging within the platform give us a 3-paragraph summary that includes all the content provided from our different tooling here. It does not randomly go out and select information and sources from the internet that it's going to include in the summary. And then there's a 1-paragraph kind of TLDR at the bottom of each one. So that's how you can leverage the platform to understand things a little bit better. Keeping in line with the web attack, we also want to show some cases for system interoperability here. Obviously, if we've investigated something, we've made a determination, we've made a judgment, there may be an action that we want to take next for purposes of either enabling defense, responding, containing, or maybe there's some sort of work that needs to be initiated in a downstream process to enable either the defense response component, or maybe it's just work that is very specific to your organization that needs to be done. So here, we're going to turn on just a few more integrations. These are to showcase, again, that system-to-system interoperability, utility, and execution. I'm going to turn on the ThreatConnect IOC submitter. I'm going to turn on XSOAR. For those of you that might leverage a SOAR platform internally, that's just a representative example. And I'm going to turn on Jira as an example of another ticketing system. So remember, we've got ServiceNow and Jira turned on for those of you that actually run with multiple ticketing systems internally. And what we can do once again, the training hurdle here is super low. We hit button, right? We draw a box. And whatever's been identified within this area, we can actually pull back the information on, and we can understand it better. So in this case, what we want to do here is look for the ThreatConnect IOC submission card. This is going to queue up the various indicators that have been identified for us for addition or inclusion within the tip. So here I can just easily identify my 10 dot and my 192s as internals, but I may not want to add them specifically to the ThreatConnect platform. I'm going to search this 216 again, and I should get the data card once more. You can see it's found in ThreatConnect. And so I can go ahead and have confidence that I'm actually managing this effectively. If I wanted to add them, I absolutely could. But knowing that they're in the platform, I can also initiate and kick off cases. So here I can quickly nav to the ThreatConnect data. I can identify my cases if you're actually leveraging ThreatConnect for workflow, and I can kick off a case right from here. This might be a contain, this might be a hunt. I'm just going to say maybe, hunt for web intruder. And I can choose a workflow template that may have been predefined. Maybe I'll look for the Sentinel-1. And I can add any tags, web alert, and I can then add severity, and I can kick that off. And you can see a case was created and it was initiated. So I basically just performed an escalation leveraging ThreatConnect cases, but that's not the only way that you might do it. You may prefer to initiate these similar workflows within something like XOR, in which case you can. You can see here, I'm not tracking this particular string as an indicator within XOR. I could create it. I could kick off an incident, just the same as I just did with ThreatConnect. Or if I had an active case going, I could add evidence to the evidence wall. And similarly within Jira, if that's where our work was kind of flowing through, you can see here, I can create a Jira incident just as easily. So the idea here is I'm staying within my workflow. I'm simply still looking at this particular investigation, and I have not changed my process. All I'm doing is giving the ability to interact with all those tools on the fly, right on top of my screen. Just a few more examples with a little less narrative. I wanted to provide more opportunities for this to feel close to home for a lot of folks. So I'm going to turn on a few more integrations here. Abuse IPDB, a customer favorite, MaxMine for geolocation, Shodan for ports and services related to hosts, and also ThreatConnect Cal. ThreatConnect Cal does come with the Polarity platform on its own. It is not open source information. It's commercial data that's made available to ThreatConnect customers, but it also is included within your Polarity subscription. And so here, I'll draw a box around this PCAP, and we'll bring back the information into the overlay window now with all of these additional data sets included. Just to hammer home the fact that we work everywhere, because albeit while these are pictures, represented within Microsoft PowerPoint, it's still PowerPoint, and I've only showed you that in Notepad. So I did want to pull up Wireshark here live, and I'll just do a net new capture and just show you how the platform can work over anything. So now I've drawn my box around a live PCAP capture of Wireshark, and you'll see the information now pouring into the overlay window on the right-hand side. So again, works everywhere. Does not matter what tools you leverage within your enterprise. We can bring all of this additional utility, contextual enrichment, and reach into your tools that support security operations very, very seamlessly and very, very efficiently and effectively, and support both that speed and thoroughness of doing the job. Last example here, just a endpoint investigation. I like to end with this because it really is important that we help analysts understand, not simply expect that they know everything about what they're investigating. So Polarity as a mechanism to promote that understanding is something that we're very proud of. Here I'll turn on subscriptions, and I will turn on the last of the integrations that we'll show today. These are also free or have free equivalents that you can get, free accounts, free variants, I should say. Circle hash lookup, Echo Trail, and LOLBAZ. And these help analysts to understand what systems should be doing, or what files should be doing, or how they should be behaving on an endpoint. We'll go ahead, turn on focus mode one more time, draw this box around these hashes, and we'll be tapping into this information. Circle is going to let us know if the hash is expected on an operating system when it's first released. Echo Trail is going to help us to understand what that binary is and what known hashes are associated with it, or if it's included on a base install of an operating system. And LOLBAZ is going to let us know how bad guys, bad actors might leverage that within an environment. So here I can see from an Echo Trail perspective, this particular file hash is not observed. It's not deployed. That's because this is malware, right? Likely malicious and tracked by ThreatConnect and Mandiant as malicious. Whereas this string is CrowdStrike's test hash. So it is found on some systems, but ultimately not very pervasive. Now, neither of these in this case are going to be used to live off the land. But if we do have something like command.exe that an analyst is investigating, and I'd like to show this too, because it's not just focus mode. If you're more comfortable just typing things into the overlay window, you can do that. We'll get the information back from LOLBAZ so you can understand what attacker behavior looks like when they're using this particular executable to live off the land, or the specifics about this executable. I know most folks watching this probably know what command.exe is, but there's lots of executables and binaries on the system that we don't know what they are. and having a nice narrative description of what it is, how it's supposed to behave, where it's supposed to execute from, what parent is supposed to launch it, and what are the known hash types associated with it can be super, super useful. With that, just want to land on this recap here where we'll highlight the fact that we can deliver context anywhere you work. It doesn't matter what tools you use. You should never say Polarity won't work with X. We accelerate workflows with overlays, right? We bring the data to you. You don't have to suffer from tool sprawl anymore. We're just going out and opening up the next tool, running your next search, waiting, going back to the place where you were investigating. Seamless integration with all of your important things. I highlight SIM, SOAR, and your intel sources here, but also your ticketing, your asset, your identity tools, et cetera. We're going to enhance your speed, support your intuition, and support collaboration across your workflows. And we really are after delivering that ROI without a big, exhaustive development and implementation pursuit on behalf of your organization. If you'd like to try it out, you can just request a demo at threatconnect.com/Polarity. And at this point, I just want to open it up to see if anyone has any questions. I saw someone asked if they can share the slides or if there's an overview video on YouTube. Absolutely, we will share this. And there are also additional videos on YouTube.
And Joe, there's a couple other questions too. There's a question around which SIMs and tools that Polarity integrates with.
So from a SIM perspective, I think we showcased Splunk, but we also have integrations with a lot of the other popular SIM platforms. QRadar was probably one of our earliest integrations. There's a Sumo Logic integration. We integrate with Google SecOps, formerly Chronicle, and I think there's several others as well. CrowdStrike's SIM, formerly Humio, is also one of our integrations. I believe LogScale, CrowdStrike LogScale.
Awesome. And then can you export or send this information to other tools?
Yes, and that question alone also reminded me that you can also integrate with Elastic on the SIM side. But we can take the information from the overlay window. It can be exported. It can be automatically written to a SIM or specifically to Splunk or Elastic if you want to capture some of the telemetric data. Otherwise, you can export the platform, all of the integrations or all of the results from here, the export option. Each card, if you're only interested in exporting a single data set for a specific entity, can be exported by selecting the three dots here and selecting export. This will prompt you to go through a saving process that'll save to like your local drive system. You can also, very, very easily, copy paste. A lot of the integrations themselves have just a copy button here, which will allow you to preserve not only the data, but the formatting. And you can add that to anything you're working on.
Awesome. And then there's just a couple other in here. Does Polarity integrate with other vulnerability scanning tools? And can you research if you have a vulnerability?
Yep. So Polarity can integrate with, I think we showed Tenable, but it also integrates with Qualys, Rapid7, other platforms like Wiz, which can also get you vulnerability information. So yes, many vulnerability solutions. Even on the Tenable front, we support both the SC and the IO capabilities.
Great. And then there's one more. What kind of reporting do you provide in terms of usage and time saved?
Great question. So within the Polarity Source Analytics capability, you can, which I'll pull up here for a moment. This is the end user view of the Source Analytics. So what you can capture is who's investigated it over what time. You'll also see here which integrations actually give you engagement with a particular string that you're investigating. You can also see the total lookups, when it was done, by who. So you really have the who, what, where, and when components of when a search is done. When you have that and that data is captured, it all posts back to a central repository that you can be given access to. The ROI is derived from how much time you would anticipate a lot of the searching that needs to be done is performed by an end user. So if you anticipate that it's going to take minutes to surface and shuffle through a SIM query, then that time can be associated with the SIM query. Once you have that, that's straight math. There you can put in not just your time association within the platform, but you can also put in your value association for what a cost of a traditional FTE would cost. But I do want to make it clear that while we can present what ROI is, that ROI is presented in terms of opportunity time. So the time that an analyst is investigating running something to ground and may take, let's just say, an hour. If 20 minutes of that time or 30 minutes of that time is spent searching, that time is displaced. And it gives analysts the full hour to be making analytical decisions and analytical judgments rather than just searching throughout their whole day, or at least half of it. Great question.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think that's all we had for today.
Great. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for the time. And we look forward to engaging with you all in the future.
Thank you.